Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns back out on the practice field in Berea, and some good news. Deshaun Watson back out with the team, throwing the football, making progress towards getting back. Hasn't played since that Titans game when he took a hit. We now know he has had a strained rotator cuff in his throwing shoulder, went through some throwing drills and the like. First time he has done that since the injury against the Titans. Guys on the offensive side of the football hoping that he might be back against the Colts.
And we just want Deshaun at full health and make sure he's comfortable and ready to play. You know, we don't have an answer of when that's going to be, and I don't know if he has an answer. But he's trying to work through it, and that's the NFL. There's injuries, there's things that happen like that, and as a player, you really try not to ride the roller coaster, and there's a lot of noise and things like that. But as us, we have to go out there and compete and fight, and the guys that are going to be out there are going to go hard. They showed it this weekend. You know, PJ, Michael Dunn, all stepped up and you know played well, but not for us to win. But it's one of those things where if he's out there with us at practice, you know, we get excited for him, we're ready to go. But we know PJ and DTR are ready to take reps too if he's not.
It'd be a huge boost. I mean, you know, Deshaun is our guy. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we all know who Deshaun is. We've seen, you know, all the plays that he's been able to make throughout his career. It's just like any other team. Like, you're confident when your starting guy is in the lineup 100%. So it'll be a huge boost.
Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. So Quincy, not guaranteed that he's going to face the Colts. Certainly, probably not at 100%. What would it be fair to expect from Deshaun if he is under center against Colts?
It really depends on how the game plays out, right? If this is a game where, for whatever reason, they fall behind early, it's just going to be what it is. You know, you just have to kind of see how things play out like every week. I think it's fair to expect, though, if Deshaun Watson decides he is healthy enough to play the same way we did with Baker Mayfield, it is fair enough to expect him to be a positive, an asset on the field, right? If he cannot be an asset to this team and he plays, then, you know, that's going to be obviously ridicule, will be a point of criticism and a fair point of criticism. So if he goes out there, it's just, you should expect that he should be a positive. How much of a positive? 300 yards, all that stuff. I wouldn't go that far, right? Probably a limited game plan if he plays, but just you expect him to be a positive on the field and to be better than PJ Walker.
Yeah, and again, that's absolutely fair to expect that. And first practice back, they'll have to see how his shoulder reacts to throwing a little bit more. So we'll see. Still, first hurdle cleared. We'll go from there. An important question: how? And I know you've answered this in your show. How did the Browns on offense stop turning the ball over? It's been not good.
So the problem with the offense right now, and I think a lot of the turnovers have to do with not having that Nick Chubb safety blanket, which is, hey man, we need 5. Let's give it to Nick Chubb, right? It's so you don't have to put the ball in danger to move it. You have much more safe avenues of getting production out the offense when Nick Chubb's there. When Nick Chubb's not there, what do you see this offense have to do? A lot of empty, right? A lot of spreading it out, empty. And look, empty's really good for spreading teams out, getting one-on-one looks, getting things that you want, but also, you know, higher risk of turnover. What they need to do to limit the turnovers is have more success out of these screens and just, in general, be more successful in these low turnover risk plays that they have. Run plays, screen plays, end arounds. They got to be more successful at those 3 things. And the screen game was really close last week. I think the end around game was really close last week. And the run game was there. So if you're better at those 3 areas, those low turnover percentage areas, because again, you look at the Browns turnovers, 5 in the last 2 weeks, 2 games, interceptions. There's 5 flat interceptions in the last 2 games, and a lot of fumbles from throwing the ball, right? If the ball gets bounced, somebody catches it, tries to tuck it. It's just a higher percentage of turnover. When it's Deshaun Watson throwing the ball, you don't mind that. But since you haven't had Nick Chubb, you haven't had that reliability running the ball yet. You just need to get better at those areas that are low turnover percentage. And if you could do that, you'll turn the ball over much less, because now you can move the ball and you don't have to risk the ball as much. Right now you can move the ball with the quarterback only throwing 25 times. And when you throw 25 times, you're not going to turn the ball over that much.
So the Browns' run game did get going a little bit against the 49ers, averaged 4.7 yards a carry. Both Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford were effective. Alex Van Pelt and Joel Bitonio talked about that run game and keeping it going.
Yeah, that was big. Those guys ran hard. I thought Kareem ran extremely hard. Like he made some tough 4 or 5 yard runs. There was a crease there, and he put his head down and did some really dirty work in between the tackles. He's a great screen runner. We know that. And then Jerome, man, he's nifty in there. He's tough to bring down. He's got great feet. He had some huge runs, especially in that fourth quarter. So happy with where those guys are right now.
It was a great week. I think guys stepped up. I think we moved Jet around a little bit. He was pulling out there, making some big blocks for us. Poe was playing great. Wyatt. All of them really stepped up, and I think Ford and Kareem, had their best game since Nick's gone down, and I think it's just been an improvement, and hopefully we can keep stacking it. But it was impressive. I was so pumped to see it, and when you hit a good run, I just feel like that gives you a little bit of momentum and can really get the ball moving for you guys.
So Quincy, what did you see that was different that kind of helped the run game get rolling?
Yeah, so they ran a couple crunch plays. Like, they ran some different concepts in the run game other than wide zone, which I thought was very helpful. Just more oriented and getting your head down, being aggressive. I think that also included Kareem Hunt running more aggressively as well. So I think those things kind of combined for a good day for this run game. I think they were creative with the variations that they ran on these new concepts, added some new wrinkles to these run plays, and just overall showed that they're adjusting to life after Nick Chubb, right? Nick Chubb gets those wide zones. He's a monster because he can do things that other guys can't. But when you don't have him, you have to adjust to what you have, and they're doing a better job of adjusting to what they have, and I think that it showed.
Well, this is good news from Jake Trotter, who covers the Browns for ESPN. Nick Chubb lifting weights again, upper body, still has the ACL surgery ahead, but already has his kind of mind made that there's work ahead of him and work to get done. So that's certainly encouraging news for Nick Chubb, that he's back to doing the upper body stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road for Nick. Tough injury. Hopefully he can get back. I think the best goal for him is just get back for OTAs, right? That's right before training camp. He can get back for OTAs. I think that would be great. And that would be great for his comeback. So that's what I want from Nick, and it sounds like he's on the track for that. And, whatever he can do to make sure that he stays as one of the best running backs in football, which I fully believe that he can get back to form once he gets back. Because what has he ever done in his career to give you any doubt that he will reach that? You know what I mean? I'm not going to bet against Nick Chubb. I'll always bet on him to be successful and to be ahead of schedule.
So I know you also have kind of touched on this topic. Elijah Moore, David Njoku. Man, they're due. They're due for big days.
Well, when you watch the film, too, it's not like, they just need big days because they're playing bad. It's like, they're this close. David Njoku especially had a screen versus the Tennessee Titans that could have scored, doesn't even get past the line of scrimmage because the Browns don't handle one little thing on that screen on the offensive line, right? Wyatt Teller holds on the screenplay this week. That's supposed to be a touchdown, gets wiped off. Another big screenplay by David Njoku gets wiped off because of a legal man downfield. It's been right there. I think the screen game has been all on the cusp of being great, but they keep getting in their own way in these annoying little ways. And I think that's easy to clean up. And I think they'll fix that. And I think this week will be a much cleaner game for them in the screen game. I think David's going to benefit from that. And Elijah Moore, it's just been a matter of can we hold all up on the offensive line long enough to get the ball to him, right? Or can guys see him downfield? He's another guy who this close from having a massive game. I could count the 4 different coverage busts that he was the recipient of. They just couldn't get the ball to him, right? 2 in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, Elijah Moore, it's there. It should be there. He's open. They're trying to get the ball to him, but it's like one or two things that are just slowing it down a little bit. And once that finally gets in sync, I think he's going to be in for a big day. And the same thing for David Njoku.
So let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hi, yes, my name is James Seiler from Wadsworth, longtime fan. What is going on with Donovan Peoples-Jones? That guy has been a clutch receiver for the team, and they've just sort of blown him off or something. Not seeing him make any catches. I'm not seeing him targeted. And he's always been a consummate professional, and I've seen him make some seriously clutch plays, and yet they just turned their back on him. Why? It's just something that's been bothering me. You have a great day. Go Brownies.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, yeah, I think he's been targeted 15 times so far this season. Some of it may be pass protection. You alluded to it with Elijah Moore. Donovan Peoples-Jones isn't a guy that gets a lot of separation, makes contested catches, but you need time from the offensive line to throw the ball downfield.
And the offense has changed. I know people were doubting that like earlier in the season, but the offense has changed, and he might be a victim of that change. It happens every year where guys kind of on Donovan Peoples-Jones's level who they're more of a need to be in the right fit type players, and I don't think this is necessarily the best fit in the world for him. You're starting to see David Bell kind of step up in the roles that he was usually at, especially that clutch fourth down catch that David Bell had. And it seems like these guys kind of trust him a little bit more than Donovan Peoples-Jones. And it's just an evolution of the offense, and he might be beaten left behind, but I don't think I think they've been able to find guys to fill that hole for him.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll hear what some national folks are thinking about the Browns defense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, on how well prepared the Browns defense was to face San Francisco's offense.
The big thing is, one, their speed, right? And their speed, they're one of the fastest defenses in football, if not the fastest, okay? Then you get into their adjustments at the line of scrimmage, right? I think I wrote at one point the communication they were doing, because the 49ers with their shifts and their motions and all that, they weren't just going to let the 49ers you're going to shift us in motion and get into a position where now our defense is kind of outnumbered and you're going to go to this list of plays here, and we stayed in the same defense because, of what you saw before the shift in motion, and now you're just going to us over with Shanahan's specials. That's what Shanahan does. So they were like, no. When they shift in motion, we got to start thinking of they go to a different group of plays here now that they're in this formation. So we got to make sure we worry about the Rolodex of things that I taught you throughout the week, that they're going to go to these plays now. So they had to communicate and kind of adjust the front and kick over the linebackers. And you're seeing corners talk to the safeties and all of that. I mean, that was off the charts good. To the point where you were like, can they really keep this up all game? Talking like this? I mean, it really was. You were seeing guys moving, and you're seeing everybody point and talk and move, and the linebackers hitting the defensive tackle's ass to move over, a spot or whatever. I mean, so obviously Schwartz has a good feel for what Shanahan wanted to do according to formations. I think that's the big thing.
And Quincy, that's one of the things that Jim Schwartz said was the secret sauce for a defense is communication, and you're seeing it.
You look at any great defense in any sport, communication is the backbone to a great defense. You look at the Spurs back in the day, it used to be all about communication. You look at even a great baseball defense, it's about your shifts, being able to communicate who's going to get what, who has to cut off, who gets this throw, who gets that. And knowing that in real time. And any great defense is full of great communicators. And I think that's the big thing that Jim Schwartz has brought here, right? He's been a great communicator of communications, right? He's been able to get these guys to be able to talk to each other and get to the right spot of wherever they want to be. And I think that that's been the secret sauce of this Browns defense, right? Because remember, the same core players weren't very good last year. Why? Communication. I mean, it's that obvious, right? You don't see a lot of, why are you not here? This and that. Remember, he said that in his open press conference. You're not going to see a lot of this, right? A lot of, ooh, I don't know why are you doing this and that finger point. He's going to make sure guys know where they're supposed to be. And then if they do this, this is where they're going to be. And the way the Browns play man, they still got to communicate heavy, right? Because it becomes like basketball. Hey, they're trying to run a rub play. Okay, who's going over? Who's going over? Am I going under? Like, you got to have all of this communication. You have to over communicate, and you have to know what needs to be communicated at times and what's just noise, right? Because if you communicate too much, it all becomes noise. And also, like, underrated, very difficult to get that communication down to the defensive lineman because it's hard to hear down on that defensive line, and they tired. Them dudes are tired every play.
So Jim Schwartz was asked about the players. Greg Newsome was one that came out and said, greatest defense in the world. Schwartz was asked about that and kind of the mindset.
We don't shy away from expectations and things like that, and we do appreciate some confidence. And in order to have confidence, you got to play good. That would look foolish if we're out there giving up 42 points. If we're last in the league in third down percentage and things like that, then it just becomes clownish behavior. But I think a lot's being said with if you're going to have some personality and some swagger, then you better back it up on the field. And I like our guys' ability to do that.
Yeah, and you know what, Quincy? It's in order to be a good anything, you have to have confidence. And right now, the Browns' defense has a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They don't just have confidence. They have 5 weeks worth of confidence, right? 5 weeks worth of defensive performances where they should feel very good about their ability to defend anybody. And, I know people are trying to, poo-poo on who the Browns have played. One, they've been plus 12. The offense has given them 12 turnovers. No other defense has had to deal with anything like that. And if you look at the other defenses in the NFL, they're in the top 5 in turnover. They ain't the Browns, right? They're not anywhere near statistically where the Browns are. So you can miss me with all the Browns haven't played anybody stuff, because also they've been dealt the worst hand of any team defense in the league, and they're still the best defense in the NFL with all the statistic to back that up. So that's one, just very impressive. And then two, they've just been able to have so much success against, these are guys in the MVP conversation. Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson. You played the 2 best running backs in the NFL. Think about that. You've played 3 guys who are in the MVP conversation and 2 best running backs in the NFL. People are still telling you ain't played enough people. Now, if you've done that to those guys in 5 weeks, you're going to feel great about your ability to stop anybody.
Yeah, and they should. They just have to keep doing it. This is also interesting. Browns defense has allowed points on just 12 of 64 drives. 18.8%, ranks number 1 in the NFL. Best percentage through 6 weeks since 2019. And again, as they continue to do things, you're going to see more historical, markers. And that's a sign that it's just continuing.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about it is not like we're getting out of this world performances from people who we know are going to come back down from earth. The guys that are playing really well are the guys that we just expect to look like how they look like, right? JOK, Grant Delpit, Myles, Garrett, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson. There's no, this isn't like somebody's coming, like an undrafted free agent's coming up and playing incredible football and allowing all this to happen. And we know that the glass slipper is going to turn into a pumpkin at some point. These are all great players who are playing great football, who are all young and in their prime and on its defense at the same time. So, while it's impossible to think that a defense keeps up this pace for an entire year, there's no good reason to think that they're going to fall off tremendously between now and the end of the season if they stay healthy.
So let's take a look at this. This is from analytics. Fastest time to pressure, weeks 1 through 6. Nick Bosa tops at 2.15. Myles Garrett is second at 2.18. Nobody else is within 7 thousandths of a second, and that's how good that is. So today, Jim Schwartz was asked about Myles Garrett and the fact that Garrett is not getting as many double teams, and he was asked, is that because of Zadarius Smith?
It's not just Z's. He's been outstanding for us. But, Obo's played a part of that, and our defensive tackles have played a part of it. I think our blitz game has played a part of it. Sometimes the sole reason that we blitz is just try to create one-on-ones. Some people are trying to blitz to try to overload protections and get free guys. And, that's all part of it too. But, things that can get, premier pass rushers in this league one-on-one, that's a good blitz in my mind. So I think it's all together. I think, us moving Myles around a little bit, the other players around him, I think the corners have a lot to do with it also, and trying to get guys out and give the quarterback more options because, they're playing tight coverage. I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
And again, we go back to that press conference when he was first hired. That's one of the things he said he wanted to do, get Myles Garrett more one-on-ones, and he's certainly doing that.
Yeah, remember how I used to say a lot of the defensive line is like basketball, and imagine that Myles Garrett is LeBron. Remember when LeBron was in Cleveland, that first run, and it was like, how do we get this guy to not get doubled? How do we make sure that he can just get a couple of clean looks a game, right? And it was impossible because you didn't have anybody on the team to draw that attention away. But now you have Myles out there, and now you have Zadarius. You have Dalvin Thomas, and they have to worry about Grant Delpit blitzing. They have to worry about JOK blitzing. There's more than one game breaker on this defensive line at any given time, and that stresses out defenses. And then when you stress out defenses, what they end up having to do is throw numbers at the problem instead of throwing numbers at one person. And now you're seeing, Myles Garrett getting those singled up looks, being able to do what he does. It's like when LeBron went to the Heat and we found out he could shoot jumpers. Like, oh, I guess if he just isn't double teamed all the time, he actually can shoot. Like, okay, that probably was was something that was hindering him. Right now, we're seeing Myles be able to do that.
Quincy, Carrier, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Just have a couple of quick questions, maybe to get your opinion. So Grant Delpit's playing at a very high level. Is he playing himself into a contract extension? I believe so. Just like to hear your thoughts. And old D-Hop, Destin Hopkins. So far, so good. I mean, he's missed, 2 field goals this year? But when we needed him in the clutch, he's come through. And, when he trots out there to kick a field goal, you don't feel like he did when Cade York trotted out there. You're real confident. So do you see the Browns signing him again at the end of the year to maybe keep him around if he finishes strong? Just like to hear your thoughts. Go Browns. Hoo, hoo, hoo.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I'm all in on Hopkins. I liked him when they did it. He's just fine. Let's make sure he keeps making kicks, but would love to have a reliable guy. As far as Grant Delpit, he's playing his way into a big contract. hopefully it's here. They don't have a fifth-year option on him, and he might get some crazy money.
Yeah. Grant's playing super well. And I think he wants to stay here. I think the Browns want to keep him here, but the price got to be right for both sides. And I don't know if that's going to happen, especially with the way that Grant's playing. He might get Jesse Bates money. And we ain't got Jesse Bates money anymore. We can't do that, right? So we just going to have to let that one go if it gets to that point. Or they might franchise tag him or something along those lines to get a short-term deal just to keep the core together. Or like a franchise tag, but like a 1-year deal that's not a franchise tag. You know what I mean? Like that happens all the time too. So they could do something along those lines. And as far as D-Hop goes, Dustin Hopkins, yeah, why not? You know, there's no real downside in extending the kicker. The contract's not going to be that crazy. If he stinks, you just get rid of him like every other kicker. Why not? Yeah, I don't see any reason not to keep him.
You've talked a little bit about the job Andrew Berry has done constructing this roster. All the pieces fit on the defensive side of the ball. What have you thought about the way this roster has been constructed and the pieces that were added?
You know, we've done a lot of panicking about the lack of first-round picks because of this Deshaun Watson trade. But if you drafted Martin Emerson in the first round, you'd be happy with the player he became, right? If you drafted DeJuan Jones in the first round, you'd be happy with the player that he's becoming, right? So, no, the Browns have not had first-round picks, but these last 2 years, they've gotten first-round quality out of their third and fourth-round picks, which is something. Like, I think sometimes we look at the pure volume of draft picks, and we think that the volume that hits matters, the quality that hits matter. If you get a fourth-round starter, the rest of the draft is success. Right. If you get a third-round starter who could be a Pro Bowler, the rest of that draft is a success, right? It doesn't matter what happens for the rest of it. It don't matter who you missed on in the 5th or 7th round. Nobody cares, right? The Browns hit on Nick Chubb in the 2nd round in 2018. They hit on Denzel Ward in the 1st round of 2018. We don't care about the Baker Mayfield miss. We don't care about the Austin Corbett miss as much. Like, that's just the nature of things. You hit on a couple guys in a draft, or you hit on one, especially when you don't have that many draft picks, and that makes the draft. And that's been what Andrew Berry has done. As much as people complain about the draft picks that he's had, look, the draft positioning hasn't been great, but right now JOK has been playing at a Pro Bowl level. Grant Delpit has been playing at a Pro Bowl level. Greg Newsome has been playing at a high level. You have Martin Emerson that's been playing at a high level, and you have DeJuan Jones playing at a high level. It's 5 guys that you have playing like first-round picks, and not all of them are first-round picks. So I don't see how you could not be happy. You have to kind of search for reasons not to be happy because, again, yeah, you traded those first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, but the talent you've gotten from those drafts, you can make the argument you've gotten first-round quality. They're more happy with DeJuan Jones than a lot of guys are with their rookie tackle right now. They're much happier with Martin Emerson than, like, the Broncos are with Pat Surtain, who was really good early in his career, but, you know, it's not going that way right now. Like, I don't know how you could be happy with that when you look at it from that perspective, that they've gotten first-round quality out of third- and fourth-round picks.
Yeah, Grant Delpit's another one, and I'll tell you what, Jordan Elliott is starting to do some good things with Jim Schwartz. He's flashing a little bit, so I'm with you. So along those lines, trade deadline's coming up in a couple of weeks. Roster improvement for the Browns. Don't know if they'll be able to do it. This is from the 33rd team. 2 trades that former GM Jeff Diamond could see happening. He's got the Bears acquiring Darnell Mooney and the Browns acquiring Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, it's going south pretty quickly in Denver, so they might be ready to move off of him. I don't know. Is it redundant? Do they have a guy like Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and Marquise Goodwin, or do they add another young guy to that mix?
I don't see the reason to, right? Like, I would rather have a vet. Like, if you're going to trade for somebody, try to get like a D-Hop or something like that. I just don't see the benefit in getting another young guy who's unproven, who's trying to find himself, who's another project when you're already still working on the Elijah Moore project. I don't know. I'm not very high on Jerry Jeudy. I see him as another guy who's going to stink at taking end rounds, right? Like, it's just going to be another version of that. At least with Elijah Moore, I like his route running ability, and I think he can catch. I just don't think he's gotten the opportunities to catch things downfield. With Jerry Jeudy, I get it. He was a high draft pick, and he was highly touted coming out of Alabama, but this looks like what it's going to be with him. And I think it's going to be a highly disappointing player with a lot of potential. And I think this Browns wide receiving core is full enough of potential. I think they should go and get some proven commodities if they want to add anybody.
So here's another one. This one's from the Bleacher Report. It's the NFL trade block, big board entering Week 7. Jets running back Dalvin Cook. He is backing up Breece Hall. Potential landing spots, Browns, Rams. Cook, who has taken a clear back seat to Breece Hall, could become part of a trade chip, either for a swap for a lineman or as part of a series of moves to obtain one. Browns could consider Cook as they continue to search for ways to replace Pro Bowl production of Nick Chubb. He did play in Minnesota, Kevin Stefanski. I don't know. I'm not necessarily against it. I don't know that he hasn't shown much with the Jets. Now, he hadn't been given much of a chance. I just don't know what he's got left.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. Like, it might be somebody you could bring in if he gets released down the line from the New York Jets, and you want to try to pick him up and just see what you have there, because he does have so much experience in that wide zone scheme. But again, we got to get out this mindset of trying to replace Nick Chubb. We're not doing it. There's one Nick Chubb. He's hurt. Like, you're just not going to replace Nick Chubb. You got to just go in a different direction, right? The same way with the running game, they had to go in a different direction with how they wanted to run the ball, the schemes that they use when they run the ball. It's the same way that you have to think of when it comes to replacing or getting another player in here for that run game. It's not going to be Nick Chubb-like, right? Dalvin Cook is like trying to just replace Nick Chubb by getting a worse version of him. I just don't think that's going to be how you do it. I think you're just going to have to get a committee, do this thing a little bit differently, and make the adjustment. You'll be better off for it in the long run.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take another timeout. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, start looking a little bit more at that Colts game. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, this is diehard, loyal, longtime Browns fan. About this victory that we just had with the 49ers, I think the celebration has lasted long enough, and we need to be ready for the Colts. Deshaun Watson needs to be geared up, and we need to be firing at all angles. With his pass game, our running, to me, is not where it needs to be, so we need to start passing the ball. Our defense is top tier, and we need to fix our offense. Until we get that done, the rest of the league is not going to take us serious, no matter how good our defense is. Just wanted to see your guys' thoughts. So, as always, dog check, woof woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I think the players and the coaches were probably on to the Colts Wednesday after their day off on Tuesday. I think the passing game, I don't expect it to be like it was against Titans. I think it's going to take some time to get that going.
Yeah, I think the passing game, I mean, it depends on how the protection holds up, right? It depends on who's throwing the ball and what kind of a day that they're having, right? It just depends on all this. One thing to note is that the Colts love to run that, it's a system very familiar to Cleveland Browns fans. It is the old Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom, heavy zone, heavy three, heavy quarter look that Joe Woods used to run here. So this might be a week where you might be able to get stuff easy underneath. They're going to want to rally to the football. They haven't been the greatest tacklers in the world, but it might not be a big week for Amari Cooper. It might be a bigger week for like a David Njoku, right? So it's going to be about how you want to attack them. It's going to be about how the Colts decide to attack you. Are they going to go blitz heavy? I think PJ has learned, or PJ or whoever's out there should learn from what happened in the 49ers game, because we weren't necessarily the greatest against those blitzes at getting the ball out hot. On where the eye should be and where we should go to with these blitz looks. I think we'll be better at that as well. So I expect the offense to look better than they did last week. It's going to be a little bit of a work in progress, but I think that whether it's Deshaun or PJ, I do expect the offense to have a better game, because I do see that things are coming together. It's just small things are not on sync yet that can be on sync easily.
So Browns defense coordinator Jim Schwartz talked about the culture that's being built with the team.
Your team culture is defined by what you're like when you're at your worst, when things are the hardest, and I think that it's easy when things are going well for things to go good, but we've had a couple setbacks, and I like the way we responded. We had a setback against Baltimore, lost the game, and then had a big challenge coming in. Players responded the way we wanted them to, the way they expected to, and we came out with a win.
And you know what, Quincy, now let's see how they handle a big win. Now you got to follow it up against a team they're not one of the best teams in the league, being the Colts. I mean, they're okay, but they're not one of the elite teams. The Browns are a better team. They should win this game.
Yeah, they are a better team, and, they should be able to find their own motivation, whether it be, hey, we're going to do this for A-Walk going against his old team, or PJ going against his old team, or Ronnie going against his old team, or the special teams coach, Bubba Ventron, going against his old team. There's no lack of motivation for this team going up against a team that's familiar for a lot of guys on this team. So this is where veteran leadership matters. This is where guys being focused matters. Like this Browns team, we still think of them as a young team because their best players are still like fresh out their rookie deal, but this is not a young team. Right. This is a team that has had big wins before and knows the letdown that can happen. Right. Myles has been on some of those teams. We all know what it's like when this team gets a big game and then they lose the next one, and they've been through it. So they should be more cautious of it than anybody. And this is a big test for them because this is a winnable game for them on the road. It's always going to be tough on the road, and I think you're going to get a good performance out of Indy. I think they're going to give you their best punch. So I expect it this week. They had a rough game last week. They're trying to get back right this week, and everybody's counting them out. They're in the same position that the Browns were in versus the 49ers last week against us. And it's the Browns' turn to make sure that we show up and don't come in overconfident like the 49ers did.
All right, so this is concerning. The Browns tied for the worst turnover margin in the NFL with the Patriots.
5 games.
5 games, -8. And they still have won 3 of them. And they're facing a team that likes to try to create turnovers. Alex Van Pelt talked about that. All right. So Alex Van Pelt talking about the turnovers and the way the Colts like to play defense. All right. What are some of the keys to this one when you look at it, Quincy? Keys to the game.
So when I look at this in the turnover margin, like you see where the other teams are, right? And that's, again, a credit to the defense. Bill Belichick, one of the greatest defensive minds in football. At -8, they're 1-4. They look awful, right? So that's a credit to his defense that they're 3-2, but it has to slow down What I expect in this game is I think that the Colts are going to try to attack you with the run game. They're going to try to go Quentin Nelson up the middle with Jonathan Taylor, with Zachary Moss, and really try to stress you up the middle of this defense. And then I think defensively, what you're going to see from the Colts is they're going to try to lull PJ or Deshaun, since they're both very aggressive quarterbacks, into making mistakes and being impatient. Remember 2 weeks ago, because we got to go all the way back to when we were talking about Deshaun to get back on track with this defense or with this offense, is remember how I was saying, hey, sometimes Deshaun has to be patient. Sometimes Deshaun has to show and take what's there, and he did that against the Titans. You're going to need something like that again from PJ or Deshaun, whoever's out there, to be patient, to take what's there, to get what's in front of him, because the Titans, well, not the Titans, the Colts are going to beg you. They're going to beg you to take a shot deep, because that's where they can take advantage of you. They love to run cover 6, cover 3, quarter. They're going to cloud the end of that field and really make it hard to get those big plays and try to frustrate you. And it's going to be big for PJ or Deshaun to make sure that they just take what's there. Don't make the big mistake. Lull them into sleep. Don't allow them to lull you into sleep. Lull them into sleep. And then when they start being aggressive and trying to crash down, then you can get them, right? And then you can get them on a bust here or there, right? So that's going to be the plan. It's going to be about patience. Whoever's playing quarterback needs to be patient. And I think that's going to be the key to the game.
Who do you think are some of the guys that could have big games catching the football?
This week, big games, catching the football. Amari Cooper, it's hard to leave him off this list because he's been so dominant this year. It's just tough to say anything. Like, every week I'm like, oh, Amari's probably not going to have a big week. And then he ends up getting like 100 yards. It looks like 2014 Amari Cooper. But even then, I didn't see him like go over top guys like he did this week. So it's hard to count out Amari Cooper no matter what, especially when you're going against a secondary that's struggling. But I do think Elijah Moore and David Njoku, game plan wise, they're going to be very important, right? Amari Cooper might break the game because game plan, he shouldn't be super open. You would assume they're going to bracket him and pretty much take him away. So you're going to have to look to Elijah Moore. You're going to have to look to David Njoku and your running backs out the backfield to be successful.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Always really good Browns coverage, Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. John Macri from Pro Football Focus, straight ahead. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Former NFL quarterback Chris Sims on what makes the Browns defense the top defense in the NFL. This from Chris Sims Unbuttoned.
Number one in the NFL.
I don't think I'm Cleveland's
statistically they're number one. I think
Cleveland, they are statistically, and through 5 games they've let up the least amount of yards since any defense in the history of the NFL since 1971.
Which is crazy when you think about it, because yards are plentiful now. It's like teams are throwing the ball way more than they used to.
Teams get cheap yards, even when you go, man, this team dominated the game. They get the last 2 drives of the game, and you play prevent, and you go, whoa, their stats didn't look that bad. And you're like, actually, they sucked all game, and this team played prevent. Yeah. Like, they're not even giving up that type of stuff, right? So that's where. And I think their scheme is a little more complex than Dallas's. Dallas tries to confuse you with people at the line of scrimmage and try to, we always talk about, controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Cleveland's not quite like that. Cleveland's got a little bit more versatility in their scheme. Dallas wants to put people at the line of scrimmage, play man, kind of confuse you with who's blitzing, who's dropping in there, who's playing man-to-man, and kind of do it that way. Cleveland is fine with, well, you can kind of see it's man, and I don't know exactly what these linebackers are doing, but it's a 4-man rush, and they can still get after you and kick your butt that way.
Now let's welcome in John Macri from Pro Football Focus, fantasy analyst, as well as co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. John, what's impressed you the most about the Browns defense?
I think for me, it's been their ability to thrive in man coverage. They are the most man-heavy defense in the NFL this season, and they've had unbelievable success while in man coverage, which is hard to do and play, running with wide receivers back to the quarterback a lot of the time. But credit to everyone on this defense, because the Browns have been excellent in that regard. Some of their impressive metrics while in man, they're allowing a positive EPA per play rate of just 26.2%, and they've allowed a first down or touchdown on just 27.9%. Both of those are the best marks in the league. They've also allowed just 3.69 yards per coverage snap and 5.2 yards per coverage target, also the best marks in the league while in man coverage. And it's not particularly close either. They've just been very, very impressive in that regard. So that's been the most impressive thing to me, I think.
So Sunday it's Gardner Minshew, a veteran, but a backup quarterback. Richardson, their rookie, 4th pick overall, shoulder surgery, is not going to be around. What are the challenges they'll face from Minshew in this Colts offense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the way that Minshew has played so far this season, he's not overly concerning of a threat. He's had a lot of turnover-worthy plays with 10 of them in his 2 starts, obviously 3 interceptions in the last game. But I do think, like you said, he's still one of the better backup quarterbacks in the leagues, and there's some potential there. But I think the challenge is probably knowing that the offense of the Colts can kind of come from anywhere with this team, because right now they have 2 really effective running backs in Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. They also got some capable wide receivers in Michael Pittman. There's the rookie Josh Downs there, who is emerging as well and has done a nice job in his first year. And this is a team, too, that loves to get their tight ends involved as well. So I think that maybe the biggest challenge is just trying to figure out where Shane Steichen is going to create offense from, because he certainly has some options with this team.
Is there a guy that's really underappreciated, do you think, on the offensive side of the ball?
On the offensive side of the ball, like I said, I really like the rookie Josh Downs. I think that he can be somebody that is kind of a go-to for their offense, working the middle of the field, working out of the slot. This is a team that plays a lot of 11 personnel, so he's going to be out there quite a bit. And I think that there's, areas of the field to attack for quarterbacks like Gardner Minshew and previously Anthony Richardson, going to that middle of the field, having someone in their line of sight that they can get the ball to. And Josh Downs has done a really good job of that so far this season. And I think he can continue to get better at it. So I think he's somebody that I've kind of been watching this year and like him a fair bit.
Would you expect Jonathan Taylor to get significantly more? He missed the first 4 weeks, was on the non-injury, the unable to play list. Do you think now they kind of ramp him back up to where he's getting 25, 30 carries a game, or do you think he still splits?
I think it's still close enough. I think they're going to increase his workload again, kind of just a bit like they did last week. I mean, the first week that he was back, he definitely didn't have a lot of touches, but last week it was closer to a 50-50 split with Zach Moss. So I think there's at least a good chance that he gets more touches than Zach Moss this week. But the way that Zach Moss has played, he's ripped off a few good chunk plays. He's been effective with his carries. I think they probably still want to keep him involved, and I think there's still going to be a role for him in that offense to kind of continue getting some kind of a workload there. So I don't know that Taylor's going to dominate the touches, but I could definitely see him leading the backfield.
And it's important to remember that this is a guy that was right there with Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry as the best running back in the NFL. So he is somebody that the defense does have to deal with.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a defense that is going to definitely have to kind of focus in. If you're looking for offensive stars on this Indianapolis offense, then Jonathan Taylor is definitely the first one that kind of stands out, especially as he gets healthier and gets a little bit more comfortable coming off of that injury as well. So I'm with you 100%. Taylor is somebody to keep an eye on for sure.
John Macri from Pro Football Focus, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus a look at the Browns wide receivers and some matchups with the Colts defense. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns with John Macri from Pro Football Focus. He's co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, guys. With the win with the 49ers, that puts 12-5 season really within reach. I think we just need to let our offense and our coach, play caller, improve. But I think our offensive line needs to help that along. And I just don't want to hear you more about bringing in new weapons. I think we need to target some O-line guys before the end of the free agency. And our defense is playing so much better. Are we going to maybe lose Jim Schwartz to a head coaching job somewhere else because of it? Thanks, guys. Woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. John, I don't think Jim Schwartz wants to go back and again, I don't know this for a fact, but I think, he had some health issues a couple years ago. I think he wants to be a defensive coordinator. He's done the head coaching thing and was a defensive coordinator after that, even before he came here.
Yeah, it's going to be up to him, I think, right? Anytime that there's especially like a defense or an offense that is thriving the way that they are in one season, you're going to get teams calling for interviews to kind of talk to these guys and potentially look at them for head coaching positions. I know he was a head coach with the Detroit Lions a few years back, and it's been mostly a defensive coordinator since then. So maybe he does just want to stick as a defensive coordinator and work with these guys that he knows here in Cleveland. It's only his first year here too, so maybe he doesn't want to leave right away and get up and move the family once again. So I'm with you. I think there's a decent chance that he'll probably get interest this offseason as a head coach, but I think maybe sticking it out here at least for another season in Cleveland as the defensive coordinator makes sense.
And I think 12-5 is awfully ambitious. You still have the AFC North is beating each other up, so I think all of those teams, when they take a little bit of a break from playing each other, the records will improve. But you've got that next round where they're going to start beating each other up again.
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely a Thunderdome of teams in the AFC North, and the way that the Bengals haven't even really emerged. Joe Burrow hasn't been healthy, so if he can get back to his old self as well. The Steelers are getting Deontay Johnson back this week. The Ravens have been a very good team. They're another one that deals with a lot of injuries. So if they get healthy as well, it's such a tough division. That is the biggest challenge here for all of these teams in the AFC North for sure.
All right, I know you wrote an article about the Browns wide receivers matching up with the Colts secondary relative to man-to-man and zone. Take us through what you see and what you found out in that article.
Yeah, so every week I write the wide receiver man and zone coverage report over on PFF.com. And this week, the main thing that I found as far as the Browns go is that the Browns wide receivers should have a pretty good matchup here against the Colts. The Colts play the most zone coverage in the entire league, which first off makes this the most zone-heavy defense versus the most man-heavy defense, which I love that lines up. But also, Indianapolis is susceptible to yardage from their zone coverage. They rank 24th in team coverage grade when in zone, and they rank 23rd in yards allowed per coverage snap while in zone at 6.57. So basically, there's a lot about this pass defense. There isn't a lot about this pass defense as a whole that's really scary for the Browns passing offense, especially compared to last week's opponent in San Francisco. This is a much more kind of favorable matchup for the likes of Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, who could be more productive this week, basically.
Yeah, and along those lines, so this was a matchup to watch from Pro Football Focus. Amari Cooper and Juju Brents, cornerback. And it says, while it remains to be seen who's going to throw the ball to Cooper, expect him to be open early and often against the former Kansas State star. Cooper ranks among top 25 receivers in yards per route run ahead of Week 7. Brent's 88th out of 124 cornerbacks in yardage allowed per coverage snap. So again, always about matchups, and there's one that the Browns look like they have an advantage in that's pretty significant.
Yeah, and Brent's, an interesting player. I mean, a second-round pick out of Kansas State, but he had a really good first game in the NFL this year. But since then, the last 3 games, he's allowed 2 touchdowns, over 100, or actually right on 180 yards over his last 3 games in coverage. Amari Cooper, still one of the better route runners and wide receivers in the league. So you going up against a rookie cornerback, you should absolutely be able to take advantage of that matchup when they line up across from each other, right? Cooper doesn't really stick to one side of the offensive formation. He'll move around a little bit, where it seems like when they have a deployment for Brents, it's to kind of keep him on one side of the field. So they'll see enough of each other that I think Cooper can definitely take advantage of that.
Who's an under the, I don't want to say an under the radar, who other than Cooper do you think could exploit this defense in the offensive side of things for the Browns?
Yeah, so I like Elijah Moore. I think last time I was on, we talked about him kind of trying to get him the ball a little bit more, some more design touches to kind of help supplement the run game a little bit. And I think there's a potential for that. And we did kind of start to see that last game as well, getting him some more of those quick passes and design wide receiver screens to get the ball in his hand and get him doing things with the ball in his hands to create some yardage after that. So I think there's always going to be that potential for him. And this is, again, another one of those defenses that it doesn't really scare you as far as coverage goes. So there's potential there for Elijah Moore to kind of get involved this week and then do some damage as well.
So this is from NFL Stats. Most sacks allowed per game this season. And you see the top there. And then the bottom. Browns are 28th, 3.6 per game. Titans 3.8. Bears, Giants, and the Commanders over 5 per game. So I guess the question is the sack total relative to having 3 different quarterbacks play in the 5 games, or is it a question of the offensive line giving whomever is back there enough time?
Yeah, it could be a little bit of both for sure, but I thought the offensive line, they've done a decent job this year. They're ranked 12th in pass blocking grade. DeJuan Jones, the rookie, I think he's done a really nice job kind of being thrust into action as a 4th round pick. He's allowed just 1 sack on the year, so I'm not, charging him with a lot of those sack numbers. Jedrick Wills has struggled a little bit, but I think a lot of their strength comes from the interior of the offensive line. It'll be nice to get Joe Bitonio back this week as well. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to the quarterback, right? A lot of the sacks are mostly a quarterback stat. Deshaun Watson has historically been somebody that holds on to the ball a long time and does take a lot of sacks. So that part of it it definitely plays a part. But then you got guys Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker as well. There's definitely a combination, and I'd say probably more on the quarterbacks because I think the offensive line has played well enough so far. And
you would assume, with a guy who has a banged up throwing shoulder, the message has to be get rid of the ball. Do not take unnecessary hits.
I hope so. I really, really hope so. And that's part of the reason, too. I think that Elijah Moore fits as a good option this week. Just kind of quick throws, really shorten that time to throw for Deshaun Watson. He's always kind of been up over 3 seconds in his time to throw every single year that he's been in the league, which is very high. So would like to see that come down, hopefully a little bit quicker, closer to maybe that 2.5 range, which we aim for quarterbacks. And yeah, we don't want to see the injury happen again. Obviously, that shoulder is an issue right now, and he's just got back to practice. So hopefully that is the message, is to get the ball out quickly this week.
John Macri, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
John Macri, he is from Pro Football Focus, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure you check him out. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.